Take it
All
away.
right. Thank you. I'm excited, so excited to do this for my good friend Emily. I do have the Lies That Bind shirt on. I don't know what you can
Wait,
see.
show them again because we're going to be giving away some to. There you go.
Awesome. The Lies That Bind.
Very cute.
So really, I know you want to hear from Emily, and so I'm going to just start kind of conversation. And I have questions that people send in, which some actually probably kind of tie into already what I thought about. I've written 2 children's books, and I've been trying to draft a novel since 2011. So I hope to complete that one day. But so Emily, if you want,
I want to say a couple things real quick.
Yeah, you go.
You knew I was going to do this to you.
Oh gosh, wait. Okay.
No, but I want to say, first of all, thank you so much to Tom and Interabang Books. Amazing. You guys, I went to 2 events at your store last year. One I did moderated for my friend Harlan Coben, who's on Michelle's top 5 list. Fun fact about her. She's like, the 5.
Wait, clarify top 5.
The list where you can
just kind of have a crush, but it's friendly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. John is there, your lovely husband. You're in his office. I'm not,
Yeah. Yeah.
But and then at my own event when my book came out, I guess it was 2 years ago. So I love the store. It's a great indie to support. So I appreciate everyone being here. And I so appreciate you, Michelle. You've just been such a dear friend. And just to give you guys a little background how we met, when was that? It was like,
okay, I came to
I actually met your mother and father first.
The what?
I met your mother first. For those of you who don't, might not
know,
met
my mom and
Michelle
dad
is
first.
Roger Staubach's daughter. And I met at the Final Four. I went to a dinner and I met them. And instantly your mom told me that you were a lawyer and a writer as well. And she gave me your information. And then you came to a book signing that I had the next night. And we hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. So, and Michelle,
and then I had you.
For a lot of people on this Zoom call already, especially from Dallas, already know this. But Michelle writes children's books. They're absolutely delightful. So look them up. The character's name is Pidge, and she's also, as she said, working on a novel. So we'll be able to get her novel soon because she's going to finish it, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's just a little background on us, and again, just thank you for everyone for joining. It's a crazy time, isn't it, Michelle?
I mean, every day a little bit.
It's yeah.
Yep, and yes, there's no other way to say, but it's crazy.
Do you feel? It's obviously such a heavy. It was already heavy with the pandemic, and now sort of this. Social feels like a social revolution. This movement that's
right,
amazing and inspiring, but also just grounded in such sad. Really sad individual stories, and a sad landscape of our overall country. But are you feeling hope lately, Michelle?
I am because so I like I told you before, I've been wanting to be involved with the Innocence Project for some time before George Floyd. Okay, I haven't practiced in years, and I've never done criminal work, but and unfortunately, the Innocence Project, the majority of the clients are Black males, and we're not gonna go off into all that. So I've joined that, and so
the Innocence Project's a great
sad. Is that what's that?
It said the Innocence Project is great to follow on Instagram.
Yeah, and they're all separate. So innocence-texas.org, that's the Texas, they're all separate nonprofits, but we all support each other. But what I'm sad to say, I was a history major in college, and I think Van Jones said it right. We read White Fragility, which is very hard to get because everyone's reading it now, The New Jim Crow, and another book is Color of Law, because it will update you on the legislation that goes all the way back that we have continued through legislation to suppress the Black population. So just to, and that is sad. And that is a lot of the reason why it's like, why can't they, people say, well, can't they fix it? No, we need to help fix that. we don't need to feel guilty being a white person, but yes, it's time to act. And I do think we are going to move forward. And that is a huge goal of mine. We cannot have another.
Yeah.
I've already had kind of one since George Floyd. So.
Right.
But yeah, so it's you know, and
have you found that fiction and has been an escape for you right now? Like, have you, or movies, or because it's such, it's so heavy that I feel that that's really helped me reading reading books and kind of being able to escape it. So
yeah, you have to go back and forth between a book that of that, like Color of Law, where you're reading about how horrible, and then read something fun. Same thing, movie. I think yeah, it's tough. Like my mom, Marianne, who's watching on here, who lives a mile from me.
Hey, Marianne.
I can't talk about this because I'm gonna cry, but I haven't hugged my mom or dad.
Yeah.
It's COVID.
Yeah. Oh, Michelle, I'm sorry.
No, but I mean that's life, right?
I know, but I'm just so glad we have. And
that makes me really sad because my dad is the best hugger in the whole world.
Oh.
And he really is. And but I see him. Actually, he's grown a beard, which he never had in his life. So we all had to figure out. I did have that question when I had adult teenagers, college, sent home all of a sudden and said, would I rather have toddlers during this?
Oh yeah.
Or adult, young teenagers and adult.
I've asked that question. I've thought about that a lot. My assistant Kate has 2 little boys, and they're almost 3. Both of them are under 3, and I have teenage. I think we have it easier. I think it's much harder to have.
Well, you don't have the ones coming home from college that aren't happening.
Yeah. Well, also my son's
yes.
sort of a skewed sample because they're such rule followers and kind of all they care about is running, and so they're kind of they follow all the rules, and they're not really tempted to do social things as much because they're going to bed early and getting up and running and so forth. But my daughter Harriet, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably know who Harriet is, and she's a handful. She presses she's much more social and presses that all the time. What about that? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Stephen is my publicist, but also my friend who helps me log on to these things. And he just pointed at the book and said, the book. Yeah. But he pointed to the
okay.
And so I'm like, what? You want to talk about Heart of the Matter? Okay, let's get to The Lies That Bind.
So get to the book. So
The Lies That Bind, I know some of you have read it, some of you haven't. We will not do any spoilers tonight at all about the plot, but just quickly for those who want the premise, who haven't read it yet, it's about a young woman living in, is my internet stable? It just said it was unstable. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So it's a young woman living in New York City in the summer before 9/11, so the summer of 2001, and she's just out of a relationship and she falls in love with someone new, and it's kind of a whirlwind romance. And then 9/11 happens, and he disappears in the chaos of that day, and she has to. I don't want to give the.
I know, it's so hard.
I know she has to sort of figure out who he was. That everything she thought she knew about him isn't necessarily the truth about him. So in uncovering this truth about him, she uncovers truths about herself. She gets to know herself. And so the novel sort of answers the question, can you ever really know someone in a relationship if you don't know yourself? And so that's the general premise. But the reason that I chose another question that I get, and I know some of these might come up, but another reason that I chose to set it in the summer of 2001 is because it's just such a vivid time, the last summer of innocence, before the world changed, on 9/11. And it's a very nostalgic time for me, looking back, because I was living also in New York, like Cecily. I was practicing law. I was just leaving that career and pursuing my dream of being a full-time writer. I'd written a book over the course of 5 years while I was practicing law, and it was rejected. And so now I was like, I was leaving the law and going to move to London and write full time. So when I think back to that summer, it's a very intense summer, I think, for all of us who remember it, because it's whenever anything big happens, I think we often go back to what happened before. I've done that. I think we've all done that with just this pandemic. It's hard to believe that we were just going to holiday parties 6 months ago, right? I mean, it's like the before and then the after. And so yeah, I wanted to set a book in this time because it's not only a historic moment that we all can remember, but it's also a time of really deep reflection. And, you kind of, breaking into tears just now about your parents, I think is like reflective of the emotions we're going through. And I think also that we sort of take stock of our lives and we ask ourselves, are we living the life that we're meant to be living? And sometimes it takes a really big event, and tragic events, have a way of doing that all the more, where we pause, take stock of our lives, ask ourselves these questions about our relationships. I have 3 friends, sadly, who are going through a divorce just right now during COVID. It's just the proceedings are sort of gearing up and they're making the decisions. And I mean, it is very sad, but maybe that was inevitable. And this moment in time has forced them to say, what, this relationship isn't working and we're not happy. And how do we move forward? The same with our professions, finishing your novel, which, changing your job, going to work for the Innocence Project. All my examples are around you. So thank you for that. It's very helpful. But, going to work for the Innocence Project and saying like, this is what I've always wanted to do. This is what I'm meant to be doing. But it kind of took this shake up and this tragedy for us to really kind of hone into that. So it's weird though, because when I wrote the book, I didn't know that it would be published in this time. I finished it, turned it in January. And so one of the first things that my sister said after, the edits were turned in and it was ready to go and things started to shut down in early March. And she said to me, isn't it weird, like how many similarities there are between, this is the book that you've just written at 9/11 and the moment we're in now. And this is sort of the first time I had to agree with her. First time I really thought about it that way, but it's really true. And so the book is about her internal journey, Cecily's internal journey of asking herself these questions. Yeah. And I love hearing from you all on social media, the wonderful like notes and letters that you've been sending. You all are getting a signed book, so you don't need this, but for your friends who aren't on this call and they want a signed book, you can send away for a book plate and I'll sign that for you. But a lot of the letters that I've received are people sharing their stories of what's going on in their lives and how they've connected to the characters in past books or in this book. And that's so meaningful to me. I'm sure you feel the same when you get letters about Pidge and you hear from kids and but your characters, but it's really, it's the reason that I write. I mean, I've always loved to write. I've always wanted to be doing it, but the reason that I'm able to stay on a schedule and publish books and really, really do this as a career is because of you all that are on this call and that are out there reading the books. So so thank you again.
So so I think what you said right there about Cecily's internal.
I'm gonna have a sip of beer too.
Is I'm having a little cheers to you too. Is that it is I think we're all on a journey, right? Life's a journey. And I think as women, it's always evolving. You choose, do you stay home? Do you work part-time? So there's a lot to that. But I'm going to start with, because as a writer, and so I have questions and I'm going to call out to those people that have sent them in, but they also, a lot of them do tie into what I was going to talk about. So, but I'm always curious as to you as a writer, your day-to-day life, like how do you write? Do you outline? I'm just going to throw these out there. Do you handwrite first? Do you type? Do you have a set time each day? Do you do the hero's journey? And you are on where you write, you put out a novel every 2 years. And so first of all, if you can just briefly tell us your writing process, I would love that.
Sure, I would love to. Before I forget too, if you're on this call, if you're on this Zoom virtual event, if you're joining us, comment on my, I'm not forgetting your question, Michelle. Comment on this post with Michelle and me there, and just say that you're on it, because I want to look at it during the course of tonight and see who's joining us. Yeah, so that's one thing. Okay, my process. Okay, so every book has started with an idea, with a sort of a what would happen if you fell in love with your best friend's fiance, something borrowed. Baby Proof, my third novel. What if two people who were soulmates, married, and then one discovered, are there deal breakers when it comes to true love? What if one person wants to have a child and the other person doesn't? That's, Baby Proof. Let's see. The one and only, Falling in Love with Your Best Friend's Dad. That one was about football, which I'm sure you could relate to.
That's why I recruited you to come to Dallas.
Yes, you did.
The Bush literacy event.
Yes, that was amazing. Amazing. I love the Bush family so much. And then, so it starts with a premise. From there, I come up with the characters and their sketches and start writing the book. And in my mind, I have a sense of beginning, middle, and end of what I think is going to happen. And just an easier example, because we won't give away plot spoilers. And most people, I think if they're on this Zoom, they probably have read Something Borrowed or seen the movie. So we'll take that as an example. But, what would happen if you fell in love with your best friend's fiance? That's the premise. Okay, who are the characters? Rachel and Darcy. Okay, where are they from? They're going to be from Indiana, but they're going to now live in New York. So I wanted them to sort of have that. This was just the same thing. Something else that Cecily shares with those early characters, that she's sort of a fish out of water. She's a Midwestern girl, but now she's in New York City. So then the premise is set up, the characters, you get to know the characters, you kind of add in Dex, you get to know Dex. And in my mind, the beginning, middle, and end is girl falls in love with her best friend's fiance. She has this affair with him. She falls in love with him. He's not really a good guy, because who but a kind of a cad would have a relationship with, while they're engaged and leading up to their wedding with the maid of honor. So then my end, of course, based on my feelings about who Dex was when I started writing the book, was that Rachel would end up single and alone. Strong, independent woman in a new career that she loved, and she would jettison her friendship with Darcy, and she would obviously, kick Dex to the curb, and there would be our heroine. And so that was my plan. I don't outline. I just sit down and write, and I write the scenes like in a linear way. I go chronologically. I mean, there's flashbacks, but I write the flashbacks as I go, chapter by chapter.
And let me tell you, you're excellent about, because the critique I got in my writing classes, right, is where you just drop in background, which is bad. And you know what? You get all your background in current dialogue.
Oh, well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Most of it. And well, that's key, right? Because it's so easy just to try to drop that background.
Yeah.
And
I think I do that too, though.
Well, you're a professional, aren't you? So
yeah.
you just do that naturally.
Now that's the thing, though, the whole professional writer thing. So I want, just for the writers that are listening, and on this conversation, it's so, I don't even know what to call it, on the Zoom event. Yes, I write professionally, but my process hasn't changed since I was writing, hoping to be published. And I think it's important to remember that for people, because I think there's this sense of, if you write, you're a writer. You might be aspiring to publish, but you're still a writer if you're writing. And there's a very thin line between publishing and not publishing, and all of that commercial success and what comes with that. But so I think you can't think of it that way. So whatever works for you, works for you, and it will probably be what you do forever. So the second you get published and now you're a professional, it doesn't mean that your process changes, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like if you're an amateur tennis player, you go out and you hit the ball a million times and you do whatever a tennis player would do. And if you turn professional, you're doing the same thing. You might hone your skills, and you might have a coach and you might change it a little bit, but probably your process is going to be the same. So my process really hasn't changed.
Okay, when I ask this because it's popping up, someone's asking, is Darcy the same character again? Yes, in your books. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of people have popped up and asked that question.
Okay. How am I not seeing those? Let me see.
I don't know. I'm seeing them. So
okay, I see it now too. Oh, good.
Important. I wanted it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that.
But when I just to finish on that, something borrowed. So as I got to know the characters, their intentions changed, the relationships changed based on what I was writing, because I'm just like in the flow of writing the story. And then of course, I don't want Rachel to end up alone. I mean, being alone is fine, and it would have been a fine ending, but not if she's really in love with Dex and he's a really great guy, which he turned out to be. So that ending changed. So for me, and I'm not saying that everyone should write this way, because I think it's probably more efficient to outline. But for me, I don't outline, and so it's fluid and it changes. So I might have an idea of where I want a book to end, but often it doesn't end that way. And sometimes it does end that way, but we get there differently. And so, yeah, that's kind of a word on my process.
So I bring that up because we can, first of all, quick answer, like, can you agree that rewrites, you spend way more on the rewrite than the draft?
Do I personally?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question, because it's hard to separate the two for me, because I edit every day.
Oh, okay. So you're kind of doing it as you rewrite. Okay.
So that's why I'm so slow. I think I feel slow compared to, my colleagues and other fiction writers, but who publish once a year. But I'm pretty slow in that I publish, anyway, I'll write, and then the next day I'll sit down and I'll
read
what I wrote before, and then refine it, or like edit it a little bit, or play with it, or change some things, so that I have something to show for myself for that day. Because you can't really guarantee that you're going to write anything new that you're going to be happy with, but you can always sort of control the work on the back end of the day before. Hopefully.
Okay, answer this. Do you have a set time? Do you sit somewhere and you write X hours a day?
I not that rigidly, but I do have, like, I have to, for me, because again, I feel like I'm slow in the scheme of commercial fiction writers. I do have to be, well, I feel that I am. I mean, I think some write maybe 3 hours a day and they finish a book in a year. So that means they're churning out more words than I am, because I write more like 7 or 8 hours a day. And that doesn't mean that every minute my fingers are flying on the keyboard, but I'm spending that amount of time with my characters every day, Monday through Friday. Not so much on the weekends, unless it's like I'm running up against a deadline or I'm really in the flow of something, then I'll occasionally work on the weekends. But
then you're at a wrestling match.
Yeah. It's hard with kids. There's so much going on the weekends, which is another, I think, silver lining of this COVID, is that time has sort of slowed down a little bit, which has been nice. But yeah, so the kids go to school, and then I kind of do a few things around the house, start a little laundry or whatever, clean up breakfast. And then I'll go out to my office and start writing. This is actually my husband's office.
And I'm in my husband's office,
know.
Which my office is cherry bright green, and I wanted to be in there, but for some reason, even though it's right across the hallway, the Wi-Fi messes up.
Well, that was the thing.
Wi-Fi guys I've had out here. Okay, so I bring so John Irving, I find him fascinating, right? And I'm not quite sure I've gotten through his 500-page books, but I asked you this because he says, I always begin where I always begin, which is at the end. I've never started to write a novel or a screenplay without knowing the ending first. And I don't mean that I need only to know what happens at the end of a novel or a screenplay before I begin it. I need to know the sentences themselves. So he does an outline. So he's like you. but he's clear of the beginning and the end. And he says he spends way more on revision. And that first sentence, he says, is to him, and he really credits, he thinks he did his best first sentence ever in A Prayer for Owen Meany. So just read that if y'all want to, because it sums up the novel. And I'm going to read you Emily's first sentence because honestly, she did that.
I did?
It is sometimes between 1 and 2 in the morning, what my mother calls the witching hour. And I am sitting alone, and I'm going to highlight that, in a grungy, graffiti-covered dive bar on the Lower East Side. Okay, so I'm not going to give away any spoiler points, but when you read the whole novel, think back to that first sentence.
You asking me to do that? This feels like homework.
No, I'm just saying that there's a theme of alone.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We have to agree with John Irving, but he's some pretty good books, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so,
first sentences are important. I do feel like, okay, my first chapter takes me about 2 or 3 months to write. I'm like really embarrassed to say that. My editor knows it already, so
you shouldn't be.
Well, I'm just, I guess embarrassed isn't the right, I don't know what the word is. It's sort of like self-loathing that it takes that long. But it's like there's so much going on in my mind mentally of like sorting out the characters so that it would appear that I'm just fixating on this, like the fifth sentence of the book, but it's really that I'm thinking things through, and then it gets faster as you go along and get to know someone. And it's sort of like, I find that to be the case with relationships. So, when you first meet someone, it's like like when we first met, I mean, we knew that we had some certain things in common, but we really didn't know each other. And it takes a while to get to that point where you're comfortable, and then it just...
To the 2 a.m. at the mansion parking lot.
Oh, good point. Yeah, we've had some wild ones, haven't we? But we're not supposed to say that because when I went to Dallas for most of those wild ones...
No, yeah.
Not on book tour. I'm good on my book tours, but I was supposed to be doing research. I was doing research for The One and Only, which was set, the book... I don't see it behind me, but it's the...
you didn't tell me that.
Well, yeah, you knew that. You knew that.
We were doing research on that, but okay.
Yeah. Oh, come on, Michelle.
Trying to get the scoop about me and what I know about Roger quarterback.
Okay, you're totally blowing your cover now. My cover now. But no, my point is, I do go to the city where the book is set. The One and Only was set in Dallas.
Right.
So I went to Dallas because I went and football practice at SMU and so forth, and went to various restaurants. But yeah, you and I take it to a bit of an extreme
but that's
with
fun.
our research.
And that's unfortunate fun. That we can't. Okay, so in order, for a character, right? You have a novel. A character goes on a journey, right? And we're just talking about the hero's journey. And if you haven't studied it, basically they have to transform themselves, right? So you
have to have an inner change. You have an arc,
So where. Is this fair to say that
I'll interrupt you if you start to give something away. So go ahead.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
You know where Cecily's going to end up as you write your novel.
Well, I know what her growth will be.
Okay, so
I'll say this. In the very beginning, I don't know what the growth will be. Like, I'm not, all I really know is like her dilemma. So I'm not quite sure of the growth, but I think I know the growth,
Well, good. You're reaffirming my writing process.
Yeah. So you kind of know, you sort of know where you want her to end up, but you're sometimes surprised along the way.
Okay.
But she's going to grow. She'll grow, and you'll know she'll change.
Like,
for the better.
It has to be challenged and changed in order for it to go.
Yeah. And if you look back at any movie, book, anything that you've ever loved, like that always happens. Like you don't end up in the same place.
Right.
If you end up at the same place, you still went through a lot to get there, and you have a different mindset, but right. That's right.
So I say that, so I know we're gonna get into the kind of the love relationship forgiveness, but so I just have to point out that this is not spoiling anything, that so I know, okay, well, no, I should rephrase this. So how much do you write from your personal life? I know you lived through 9/11, and I know you lived in London, and I
Sure.
think most writers, right, have to write from that.
Mm-hmm.
And with that said, and then you can,
Right.
you reference Pete Taverns in your book, and that's where I had my first date with my husband in New York.
Ah.
So that I was like, oh my God, Pete Tavern. Okay, so explain like how much you draw from your own life.
Yes. Well, definitely. Like, every book, every premise of every book is not autobiographical. There has been no novel to date where the premise is autobiographical. That said, because I write in the first person, with the exception of Heart of the Matter, Valerie and Heart of the Matter was written in the third person, alternating with Tess, who was written in the first person. But other than that, everyone has been written in the first person. So that is 10 books, but several of them have been dual narratives, like let's call it 14 protagonists, give or take, in the course of my published novels. So out of
you just threw out Heart of the Matter.
Heart of the Matter had 2, Where We Belong had 2, and All We Ever Wanted had 3. So it alternated every other chapter or every third chapter. So those had multiple protagonists, main characters. But out of the 14, I would say I have to have something in common with all of those main characters for me to be able to connect with them. But if you think about in your own life, you really, to connect with someone, it doesn't have to be very much. You could share your, love of surfing, or you could, have, you could both be in a support group for something, and, everything else in your life could be totally different, but you're both, dealing with the same substance abuse issue, or the same like grief of like losing someone, or whatever the case may be. So I don't have to have very much in common with them. I don't have to have everything. They can be a different age, and they could be living through something very different than I am. But as long as I have a way to connect them, I could go through all 14 characters and say what that thing is that I have, in a way that I'm able to feel like I can be authentic with their voice. And sometimes it requires a little more research about their background and understanding what they're going through, and talking to people who have gone through that, whether it's a woman who wants to adopt a baby. Like I didn't adopt. But I then would talk to people who did adopt, or who did give a baby up for adoption. But I think with writers, with fiction writers, particularly my genre, like women's fiction, stories about relationships, I think that we're as a group pretty long on empathy. I think certainly I would say that I feel like I'm, have a lot of empathy, and that it enables me to get into the heads of characters who I might not be a lot like, because I've never had a child who's, been burned roasting marshmallows like the like Charlie in Heart of the Matter. But I certainly have imagined similar horrors, and feel like I can put myself in the shoes of a mother who is, rushing her child to the hospital to deal with that. So, so I could, you once you get to know the character, you have to have something in common with them. You get to know the character, and then you sort of put yourself in their shoes enough, and live in their skin enough, and spend enough hours a day with them. Really, I spend more hours in the day with my characters than any living person. Probably.
It's almost like you become a dual personality.
That's kind of creepy.
Am I Cecily or am I Emily?
Well, I think people who read the book sometimes get that confused. But not you, but no.
Right. I mean, sure. Just what I've done, it is an escape.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I jumped to the children's book, I realized they say we all have a core story, and it's Pidge, and that's not, so we're not going to get on that all right now, but I'm just going to state, I think that's my core story.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize they wrote that when I was writing it.
Right.
And so I mean, we write from what we know, but yes.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I think that's correct.
Well, I mean,
You have to write what you have to write what
observe.
you know and what you can connect with in some ways. For me, I do, but it's also a challenge to be able to, to push those limits as a writer. So
Right.
for the last book that I wrote, All We Ever Wanted, the blue one, the cobalt blue one, I still call books all by the colors of them, but that one was written, one of the 3 viewpoints was a man. So that was the first time that I had written in the first person about a man, which you would think would have been more difficult than writing about the woman, because he was a single father. And the other character was a teenage girl, and the third character was a married mother. So you would think I would have much more in common with a married mother than a single father, but I actually could relate more to the single father. Because he has this, we're not talking about that book, but for those of you who've read it, he has this kind of heightened sense of justice and fairness. And I don't know if I got that from being a lawyer, or whether I was always like my mom would say I was probably always like that, like wanting to get the truth out in an argument with my sister or whatever. But Tom definitely had that. He just had that, like, he just couldn't let things rest, even at times to his own detriment. And even at times to his child's own detriment. Like, she wanted him to, he was a good father, but she wanted him to stop with something, like, don't do this. And he wasn't able to do that. So I could relate to that. And Tom, I felt like I really knew Tom, and I loved writing in Tom's voice. So
sadly, my family might say, my kids might say that about me.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know we're getting towards the last 20 minutes. So I'm going to ask the questions of some of the readers.
Okay.
So Erica asks, this book was so emotional. I teared up reading it. What books have made you cry? Do you recall the first book that made you cry?
Oh, the first book that made me cry?
I think it's a great question. I'm not sure I can answer it right away. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No. I'm so bad at these questions, though. I'll think of it later what my answer is.
Okay, so we can think about it.
Because there's the first books, were picture books. Most of them aren't sad, but some of them were
I know, and you wonder, the green tree. I have that mural drawn on my firstborn's. Something struck with me about that book, right? But it's a sad book in many ways. But something, it was the mural for my firstborn child on his wall, right? And so, okay, so now he's going to sue me for that, right? But no, I'm kidding. So, okay, think about it. I'm going to ask another one.
I'll say this. The first one is Michelle. The first one is what threw me off with I can't think of the first one that made me cry.
Right,
but
the say book one that did.
Cry the hardest is Me Before You. Did you read that? It's sobbed. Jojo Moyes. Is that how you say her last name? She's a friend.
I haven't read it.
I don't even know how to pronounce her last name. But I love the way she writes, and I love that story. It was just but I just sobbed after that. Yeah.
So we know you were, the next question, Heather, thank you. We know she was directly affected by 9/11. And then
Velveteen Rabbit. Oh my gosh, I was thinking that. Shit, I'm reading the comments here. I finally figured them out.
Well, no, these are questions that people submitted earlier.
Yeah, I know, but I just jogged my memory that the Velveteen Rabbit. When you're a kid, I think a lot of those early books, anything with it, Charlotte's Web. Oh, that's a great. All the animal things.
Oh God, we were traumatized as kids.
Yeah.
Okay, so they say, so this friend of mine said, her child said to her, Mom, are you gonna die? And she's like, no, why do you think that? He goes, well, they all die in the Disney movies. The mom died. But a lot of them.
Yeah, they are sad.
Got it. Okay, so I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Paola. Paola asks, one theme in this book is forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Do you have any personal experiences that you could share in which you have forgiven a boyfriend? that gets deep. And what did you forgive and was it worth? Okay, well, we don't want to sell anybody out, but that is a big theme, right?
Yeah, no, forgiveness is a huge theme in my books, and sort of mistakes, like the messiness of relationships, how we screw up, how we mess up, how we hurt those around us. Usually our mistakes, we might get an offender bender with someone and that kind of a mistake, and like that affects them. But usually our big mistakes in life are about hurting other people and, or, hurting ourselves through our own poor choices. And how do we recover from that? So my characters are all pretty good people. They're like solid, good people. Like I like to think that they have good hearts and care about doing the right thing, but all of them have made mistakes, and they tend to be big mistakes, and they tend to like really hurt people. So the books are often about finding forgiveness. So I think that's a really great question. And what was the act? She said,
do you have any personal
personal experience
you could share with you for
right. Well, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that my husband cut my son's hair while they're training in Flagstaff, and they have this beautiful hair, and now they have it looks like, this is what I told a friend of mine, their haircuts look like a scene in a movie where they're supposed to be giving an exaggerated bad haircut to a kid. It's like not even believable how like bad it is. Anyway, it'll grow. It's just hair. But yeah, no, the other one, okay, I'll give another one with my husband. He also took the pictures when the boys were born to be developed at like a really kind of questionable drugstore, and they ran all the negatives with like a hair on the thing. And once you run the negative, like that's it. You can't redo the picture. So they're all screwed up. Those are his two big mistakes. In the scheme of things, that isn't too bad.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah. I think honestly, this is, I
think it's fair to say we don't want to sell an old boyfriend, but I think we've all had experiences where we've forgiven an old boyfriend.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't take him back, I think that there is peace and sort of saying it's okay. Like, for me, this is what is required. It's just very simple. Like, and I think the same when I make a mistake. I expect the same when I make a mistake and then do this, but like just apologize and for what you're actually sorry for. Like the false apologies are sort of, but just if you apologize and you're genuinely sorry and you can, I feel like you should try to forgive people, but not everyone can. And that's especially in a marriage or in a relationship, and that's okay too. You have to be true to yourself. So yeah.
Hard, right. Okay, so the next one.
Stephen, can you open the door? Sorry.
I think this was kind of answered. How did you do the research for time periods 9/11? Well, you lived through it. Do you remember it? Well, yes, we know that. And interesting, just real quick, a friend of mine that just lived through not 9/11, COVID in New York, and got it in a high rise and stuck in that trauma, right? That see in New York. So that's gonna be a whole other thing. But will there be she says, this is Paige, ask,
hey Paige,
another time specific period piece? If so, do you have an era in mind?
My friend Michelle another Michelle, come on in. Say hi to everybody. You look so cute. She's joining virtually, but now she's here. 6 feet away with a mask. Don't worry, everybody. Yeah, I don't know. I get questions a lot about, would you ever do this? Would you ever do that? I know when the answer is no. When the answer is like, no, I would never do that. I'll never write science fiction. Let's see, what else will I write about? I don't know. I do.
Okay.
But I know what I would consider, and certainly I would consider writing another period piece. It's hard to really call this one a period piece, although technically kind of it is. I mean, it's 20 years ago, so it's definitely like historical fiction. Isn't that weird, Michelle?
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, it's been 20 years.
And so what my friend who has moved back to Dallas told me, that I don't think we don't even know where we're going to grasp the trauma that people have experienced with COVID. But her point was 9/11, there was kind of an end, right? She was stuck in a high rise, 3 months. She actually did get COVID. and so, but there was never any end, right? And
Right.
so, I mean that, okay, so, but we
Yeah.
don't, we can't get to a point. So somebody asked, is there something blue move coming? And
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that.
I know, but so this ties into it.
Okay.
This reached the movie, who would star in it, and then also, but because this all ties together, that was from Tara and Stephanie, and then Sandrine asked, like, how do you does your okay? I'd like to know how. Wait, no, I know she asked. Somebody else asked, who would you cast as characters in this?
Okay. So let me just, I'm going to answer sort of in a circuitous way here. I'm working with the producers who did Something Borrowed on bringing.
Somebody just asked me what the question is. Okay, I'm sorry, I have a little ADD. I'm trying to.
I got the question. Don't you worry, everybody. I'm following it.
Love you, Allison. Thank you for saying
Hollywood
that.
updates. So the producers of Something Borrowed have also, I'm also working with them on a few other projects, including Something Blue, Heart of the Matter, Where We Belong, and First Comes Love, and The Lies That Bind. So that's 5 books that I'm working on bringing to life with them. Some of them we were thinking about a movie, and some of them we're thinking about a limited series, and that sort of changes over time. So Something Blue was definitely, well, it's still going to be a movie, but we might look at it for, TV, because we're watching so many more movies on TV. I don't know yet about that.
Somebody said they love the idea of a series. Just piping in.
So that kind of changes over time. But right now, the reason that Something Blue has taken a while is because we've really paused to try to consider whether we want to recast that with new characters. So we might do that. That's kind of what we're thinking now, because our actors that was 10 years ago. So we might.
Right.
But I want to talk about The Lies That Bind for a second, because this is important. So Michelle, stay focused on this.
I'm here.
Okay, 1 second. This one is going to be a limited series. The Lies That Bind is going to be a limited series. It's the one that's with top, like we jumped it to the top of the priority list. This is the one.
What do you mean limited series? Wait, I'm sorry.
Limited series is like Big Little Lies.
Okay.
So it's like number of episodes and then it's done. So it's not a movie and it's not an ongoing series.
Right.
It's a story with beginning, middle, and end, but it's over the course of like 10 hours or whatever the formula is. So this one we're doing, I cannot tell you who, but we have an offer out to an actress now, but to play Cecily. But we are working on all the casting. That'll sort of be dependent upon who our main, who Cecily is, and it's so hard to say, because people have your top choice actress, might have just made a movie like this before and want to do something different, or they might be maybe the year ahead, and so the timing doesn't work out, or they're already scheduled for something else. So we don't know for sure who she'll be. The casting is happening. We're hoping to make an announcement fairly soon, and we really want your casting suggestions. So even though we have kind of a Cecily in mind, we want all your casting sessions. So here's who we want. If you could put it on your Instagram story, Michelle, you need to remember to do this as well.
Just send it to me, I'll post it right away.
Okay, but you've got to come up with your own casting.
Oh.
Yeah.
Done that. You're right.
Yeah. So I need to know.
That's my to-do list.
Cecily, Matthew,
my own casting.
Grant, Amy, Scotty, Jasmine. 6 people.
Okay, so I need Cecily, Amy, Scotty, not Grant?
Yeah, Grant and Matthew. They're important.
Okay.
Yeah, girl. Okay, so we need that. Yeah. So that is exciting, and I'm really like
do I post that publicly? Who I think?
Well, sure. You can tell me. But did you say? What did you ask?
Do I post that publicly? Who I think?
Oh yeah.
Because let me tell you, I have diagrammed your novel. Like, I don't know if you can't see, but
you are such a super nerd. I love it. We have that in common. I've got definitely very
OCD, whatever. I don't know. ADD, whatever it is. I don't know, but okay. So so now you must be writing Are you already writing your next novel?
Now you must be writing your next novel. Those are words that you don't need to be ever saying again.
No, I'm. Are you? Have you started
Yeah,
the next
it
novel?
was a good save. It was a good save. No, I am not writing actively right now. What usually happens is I'd be on a book tour, and even though I'm not on a book tour, I'm still sort of like releasing this book to the world. So it's sort of like
in a very sad time in our world.
Right. Of
So
course,
do you have? So you don't have your idea yet. I'm just saying.
Yes, I do actually have my idea. I have an idea. But because I'm technically sort of still like it's sort of like a maternity leave. When you have a baby, you're sort of on maternity leave. You know, you're sort of like dealing with the baby. You're dealing with this.
Right.
Of course, usually I'm on the road, but this is fun too. But the next book I will start writing in, call it late July, early August. So I usually take like another month to kind of transition from this one, and then I'll sit down and I'll start writing. So I do have an idea, but it's too soon to talk about it. Not because it's
no, you shouldn't.
No, it's not a secret, but it's just like I would.
No, but I mean, no, we don't. No, that should be. Okay, so Tara asks, do you have any writing habits that seem very particular to you, and what would you say is your most interesting writing quirk?
Stephen, what do you think?
Oh God!
Oh yeah, he's just
Stephen. Stephen, I haven't met you in person, but I can't wait to hug you after COVID.
Well, we've been working together since Something Borrowed, since before. He always tells this story about the first, was it the Kips Bay Borders in New York City that I did for Something Borrowed. So it would have been the summer of June of 04, June 10th, 2004, actually. And I was so nervous, and it was really just all my friends there because no one really, no one usually goes to see like a debut. I mean, I didn't have a big crowd, let's put it this way, but I was so nervous, and they kept announcing that Emily Giffin, with an R, was there to sign copies of the book, and they were running the cappuccino.
Wait, can you tell them your maiden? Can you tell them your married name?
Blaha.
I mean, that's just hilarious.
Why?
Blaha.
Blaha. It means happy.
I love it.
Did you catch that? Happy and check. He's a very happy man, I'd have to say. Even when he's butchering my children's
names. That's a funny name.
It is kind of ha-ha, blaha, blaha.
Blaha?
Okay. It's kind of like Blahnik, though. Manola Blahnik. That's what I like to think of it.
I mean, anyways, it's fun. Okay, so go on.
Okay. What was the question?
Quirk. Do you have a quirk?
They're running the cappuccino maker, and they're saying, no one can hear, and they're calling for Emily Giffin, and he said that he's never seen someone so scared in his life, he always says. So that's a little fun fact about, public speaking did not come easily to me. It is also the first time we met. We talked on the phone a lot, but it was the first time we met. But
you're talking about you and Stephen.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about you and Stephen.
Yeah, but I forget how that came up with the quirks about writing.
Do you have writing habits that seem very particular to you?
Yes, Michelle, I got it. He said that I drink a lot of whiskey. That was his joke. And the reason, it's true though, when I'm writing, not a lot, but like often. Not often in one night, but often over the course of a week. So if I'm writing at night and I get stressed about anything, like I'll just pour like a little bit of whiskey, and that's a bourbon, that's a writing quirk. Not during the day. I'm not that, I'm not that undisciplined. I'm not that out there, but or that quirky, I should say. But at night I will do that. And the reason that I then thought of the rest was because I said Stephen, because sometimes he knows my characters and stories and the answers to these things better than I do. It's great to have the longevity of work and personal relationships that we have. So that's helpful.
So please, Stephen, work for me, please.
Stephen? Okay, he says yes.
Hey, okay, Stephen, then I just signed a contract. You're done.
Oh, yeah, I do edit on the bathroom. I like to edit on the floor. Like, he's good.
Just tell us those quirks. Those are great. That's what we want to know.
Yeah, but I was also sick for a lot of the final editing process. I had the flu, it was not COVID because I got the antibodies test. I was disappointed. you know,
They're not reliable, so don't worry about it.
well, but it was the flu. It was a little before, I think it was February.
But you still could have had it.
Yeah, maybe.
Tests are not reliable. I'm not going to go into the whole doctor explanation of the issue of they're freaking people out that COVID could come back twice. Well, they don't know that what actually immunizes you scientifically. So just FYI. Okay.
Well, I just stay away. I just stay like holed up. I'm an introvert. Someone's writing on here. I can't imagine.
You're an introvert?
Yes. Okay. So Michelle, you didn't even know. It says I can't imagine Emily being nervous. She's so outgoing.
Yeah. Yes.
That's an act.
Hmm.
It's he just goes, when did you stop taking medication because you were so nervous before speeches? You know, I 2 book tours ago, I stopped taking beta blockers. I took beta blockers, especially before I went on to like television or I used to get really nervous for everything. And, I'm a little better now, but I am I think here's what I would describe myself. I'm a socially adept introvert. So I've learned, I'm very good I feel like I'm very good one-on-one. Like I can connect with people. But as far as like groups or parties, I would always rather get out of going to a party. And
so what were you like in high school?
In high school, I was fairly serious. I did not drink at all in high school. So didn't go to parties. No
Good
drink.
for you. So you are an introvert.
Yeah. So a little bit of a nerd. I was friends with a lot of a cross section, a lot of different people in my high school. So I was kind of friends with the popular kids, and then I played soccer, so the athletes, but then I was also the editor and the chief of the newspaper, and so I kind of was in a lot of different pockets. And I'm grateful actually for that, because I think a lot of people look back in high school and say, gosh, I didn't make an effort to get to know people, and I really feel like I knew a lot of people. But no, I was not the one at the parties.
Okay, I rebel. Sorry, Mom, but I did violate rules. Okay, so someone asked, what would Stephen ask you,
someone said, what question would Stephen ask you about the lies?
Ask you about lies that bind. It flipped off my screen. And okay. Lauren, your crush. Your crush.
Oh, that's Lauren. Hey, Lauren.
Shout out to Lauren.
Okay, one shout out to Lauren. Order her book.
Yes.
It's coming out. What's the title, Michelle?
Okay. She's got it.
Okay, type it in here, Lauren, and we'll read it out.
I'm flabbergasted.
That's okay.
Text me right away, but she writes for middle fiction, and she's a teacher, and she's fabulous, and she's on this call, and but they said, what would Stephen ask?
Yes, what would you ask me? Give me a question. You're 6 feet away. Take your mask off. I cannot hear you. Okay.
Stephen. You have COVID.
The way I talk to him like a brother, that's take your mask off. Yeah. What would you ask?
Why did you revisit the same time period as something borrowed?
Why did you revisit the same time period as something borrowed? Because again, I already answered that. You're not. Come on, Stephen.
What did he say?
Okay. Because I wanted to revisit this time when a historic movement morphed into a phenomenon of self-reflection. Right. We often, in these moments, again, we pause, we take stock of our lives and our relationships and ask ourselves, are we living the life that we're meant to be living? And I think that summer, the before summer, when you really weren't thinking that way, and then suddenly 9/11 happened, and then that forced you to think that way. And I think that's going on for us now. Okay, I'm going to look here.
Okay, so I'm going to say Lauren Albright, and the book is Milo Moss. So that's Lauren, and get it.
Lauren Albright, but she also has a book, she has a current book that I have.
That Milo Moss is coming out.
That's what I mean. Yeah, she has a current one.
So anyway, okay. So
she's amazing.
Let's just jump back.
I just was given the little.
Okay. So jump back to that love, forgiveness, relationships, and some of that.
Love and relationships and forgiveness. I mean, that's really what our lives are about in many ways. It's our relationships, and that they don't always work out. They don't always turn out the way we want them to. We have to be resilient. We can reinvent ourselves. We forgive. Sometimes we can't forgive. Sometimes we grow apart. Sometimes, that's a healthy thing. It's hard. It's sad. There's a lot of emotions that come with that, but we're human beings and we live messy lives, and we are imperfect and our relationships are imperfect. And we do the best we can to get it right, to come back, to redeem ourselves, to try again, to find new love. And all of that is sort of what my books are about, and because it's what we're about as people. We aren't most of us aren't our jobs. I mean, I think the people who are their work tend to be, unless it's commingles with another passion, they tend to be kind of sad people. Like if that's, yes, I write books for a living and that's important to me, but I'm Edward, George, and Harriet's mother. And, that's, I think our relationships really define who we are.
Right.
In many ways.
They're
always perfect.
When you said the messy, which is great, so I'll quote going back to our great neurosurgeon, brilliant friend, and I'm always texting him, and he's a neurosurgeon, and like he's like, I text him like, well, what about this symptom? He's like, but anyways, his point is life is messy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And it is, and we work through it, and we forgive, and we try to move on.
It's all we can do. Things
Right.
that we have, I think, and this is a good probably note to end on, but honestly, if you're on this call and you have any other questions, put them in the thread on my Instagram page, and I will answer any question you have, late into the night, tomorrow, whenever. Oh yeah, the t-shirt. Yeah. Hold on. Now you just made me lose my train of thought. Steven. What was I going to say?
Questions on Instagram.
Yeah, but I was going to say something about
Life, relationship, forgiveness,
the hopefulness of things.
right.
I can't remember now.
But no, we have to have hope. And despite the dark times, if we don't have hope,
yeah, and I like to leave my characters in hopeful places, because I am a hope.
Right.
I'm hopeful, and I have hope. And I think things can really suck sometimes, but we have to sort of have hope that we're gonna that we can't. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. We can't script things. We want to script things. We want to have a storybook life. We want to have our life look like most of us put on Instagram, that things are just rosy and perfect, and we want things to work out, and they don't always work out. And so, my characters deal with that, but I like to leave them in hopeful places. So even though things aren't tied up with a neat bow and they don't always work out perfectly, I like to think of it as sort of like, we can do this, guys.
And you know what, Emily, you do it, and Tom's Interabang's about to cut us off, but I'll say you have done that, and then otherwise, all I can think is that there's another planet with a population, and we're the reality show.
Ooh, that's
I don't really believe that.
Yeah, we'll do science fiction after all.
No, I'm not into that. But so yeah, there's hope. And we have it's just like going through 9/11, right? COVID, we can't even grasp where
right.
we'll be after that.
But we're all good. We're all in this together, and we have to support each other and see that we can get through it. And fiction helps. So thank you guys for reading my book. And so remember, order your books from Interabang, which Interabang, does everyone know that that's what that is?
Yeah.
It's a question mark and an exclamation point together, right?
And also, I want to say, so for Dallas folks, they were at Preston Royal. So Emily, you're not going to, where you were with me, right? Okay. That they were completely taken out by that tornado in Dallas. You know how
completely.
No,
I saw the picture. So they reopened at Lovers, which actually is to my benefit because it's 2 minutes down the street from me. Yeah.
And they have their new store, which is at Lovers in Devonshire. But yes, their store was completely demolished by that tornado.
And what a testament it is to them as an independent store and to their readers and to the love of books and the love of books that they nurture, that they are able to come back and they're still hosting events, and they're doing so well again. So let's keep supporting them.
Yeah.
Order your books from them. Sometimes it's a couple more dollars than you'll get on Amazon, but you're doing a really good thing for the writers community. Finally, last thing to go is the t-shirts. And I'm not going to announce them right here. I'm going to announce them on that thread. If you're not on Instagram, don't worry. Tom will let you know who you are as well if I don't hear back from the winners. From there, I'll assume that you're not on Instagram, and we'll pick a couple from Tom's list. But thank you. You guys it's amazing. The saddest part of not doing the virtual book tour is, although I get to see the lovely moderator and the bookseller, I can't see your faces. So please drop me a line on Instagram. And thank you again so much for your support, and just hang in there. It's going to be okay.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Michelle.
I'm honored to do it, and I love you, Emily.
I love you too.
I love Interabang.
Thank you all. Folks, remember you can buy additional signed copies of Emily Giffin's great book, The Lies That Bind, at interabangbooks.com or at my store. Thank you all so much. Have a lovely evening. Emily, Michelle, it's been a pleasure as always. Take care. Have a lovely evening. Enjoy your drinks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.